I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 23rd, 2023 meeting of Burlington's Conservation Commission. The first item of business is to do a roll call. Okay, so this meeting and hearing of the commission is held in person at the location noted, which is the main meeting room. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note, while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person attendance preferentially versus virtual attendance. Okay, with that, let's call a roll call. Indra Deb.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Rob Sheehan.
He's not here tonight.
All right. All right, Kent Moffett.
Here.
Okay. Emily Cotwell.
Here.
Thank you. Bill Boyven.
Here.
Okay, and who else am I missing?
Ed.
And Ed LaTurco, and he is absent. Okay, and the chair, for the record, the chair, Larry Cohen, is present. Okay, with that, we have listed a public comment period, which will normally extend a couple of minutes for something not on the agenda. If you'd like to make comments for that, we would entertain that now. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comments about something not on the agenda? Is there anyone online who would like to make comments for something not on the agenda? Okay, the record should show that there was no one for a public comment period. Next, we have approval of minutes. The first one is February 23rd, 2023. All right, do we have any discussion on that?
I had one comment that I submitted, but other than that, they were fine.
Okay,
I think that was the March one.
all right.
That was the
Okay.
second one.
Then if there's no comment, could I
It was
have,
on the sidewalk, it was the last one, sorry.
Yep.
all right, yeah, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 23rd?
So moved, Kent.
Second.
Second? Should probably state your name afterwards, it's easier for the record taker, probably.
Second, Bill?
All right. All those, let's see, I got to call each one apparently. All right. Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. The minutes of March 23rd, 2023 is approved. So is there any needed discussion for the minutes of March 9th, 2023?
That's the one I had comments on.
Bill had a minor edit, which we dealt with.
Well, we're not discussing it though, right?
No, it was just.
No, it was just it was a wording thing, really.
That's all.
All right, any comment? All right, if there's no comment, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 9th, 2023?
So moved.
Okay, that's Bill, second?
Second, yeah, Bill.
Second?
Indra.
Indra, thank you, Indra. All right. Indra, how do you vote on the minutes of March 9th approval? Yes. Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Again, these minutes are approved by the same vote, 5-0-0. Okay, so next, we'll skip down now to item number 4A. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting during which time we will act upon a request for determination of applicability filed by Jeffrey Little. It is for the proposed monitoring well installations and soil borings within the 100-foot buffer zone located at 25, 45, and 55 Blue Sky Drive in Burlington. After we hear it, we'll thereafter issue a determination. The application's being heard pursuant to Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and a copy of the application is available by writing to conservation@burlington.org. Someone here for that one? Well, Mr. Little, you're welcome to get the chair of honors right over there, the guest chair.
Well,
either one.
either one. We
Whichever
usually do this
whichever you
one, but
like.
that's appeared lately.
All right. How are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. So the way this works is you state your name for the record, state what your affiliation is to the project, and then you get to give a little summary, and then we'll take it out of your hands.
Okay.
I'm just going to share this while you're talking, okay? Just that.
All right, my name is Jeff Little. I'm a project manager for a client who is a responsible party under the MCP performing environmental assessment and remediation at the property. And so basically the application is related to a proposed installation of monitoring wells, as well as a couple of soil borings, temporary soil borings at the property in question. And it is to continue and to expand the existing monitoring network there at the property. So there are about 15 or so existing monitoring wells, and these are expanding the monitoring network for ongoing assessment at the property.
Great. That's perfect, thank you. Eileen or John, like some comments, please?
Sure, I'll do this one. So, some of the monitoring wells and borings are within 100 feet of wetlands. There's various wetlands around the site. Some are bordering vegetated wetlands, some possibly isolated wetlands, but all the work is in buffer zone, no work within a resource area. This type of work is exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, but it is not exempt under our local bylaw. Therefore, the filing is, it's really basically a filing under our wetland bylaw. No concerns other than the conditions, proposed conditions should handle any issues.
Okay, we'll see if there's any questions, and then we'll just act upon a draft decision we have. All right, how about Indra? Any questions on this particular project, which is to propose monitoring wells and soil borings?
So what I understand, there are already 15 existing borings. Am I correct?
Can you repeat that?
I said there are existing 15 borings now.
Existing boards.
I don't think we can pick it up, it's so soft. Are you near the microphone, Indra?
Yes. See,
I think he said there are 15 existing borings. He's asking you.
I'm asking. are there
Approximately, yes, around 15 existing monitoring wells.
And you are adding 15 more. Am I correct?
There will be 15 additional borings, 11 of which will be, 11 of which will have monitoring wells installed.
Are these borings too far away from these existing borings or wells?
Away from the existing borings, it varies. There are a couple of proposed boring locations that I would say are within 200 to 300 feet of existing borings. A few that are within 150 feet, and a few that are, and several that are much further away from existing borings.
Okay. Thank you, John. So what you said that there will not be any effect on resource area. Am I correct?
Right, as long as the conditions are followed.
As long as
We have proposed conditions about purging the wells, the discharge from the purge and whatnot. And obviously, these wells are over being seen by the site LSP. And this site is a well-known contamination site. So it's heavily regulated.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Emily, you have any questions on this one?
I do not, no.
That's fine. How about Kent?
Only things I had were the tree piece and then the water discharge, but the the thing that you put together already covers it, so I'm good.
All right, Bill?
Just curious, historically, what are you monitoring for and what have you been finding?
Historically, the wells, for the approximate, for 10 plus years, has been monitored for volatile organic compounds, VOCs, chlorinated solvents to be specific, from a historical release. And 1,4-dioxane is one of the other compounds that is currently being monitored, as well as per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS.
Do these things typically go down with time, but slowly? Is that the idea? It takes forever for them to go away, or it takes a long time?
The VOCs and the 1,4-dioxane typically will decline over time through dispersion, through breakdown. There are various microbial and chemical breakdown processes over time. 1,4-dioxane less so than VOCs, and PFAS, as you may be aware of, their nickname as forever chemicals, are less inclined to break down over time, though certain compounds do.
But that whole plume, does it drift, or is it stationary? Do you have any idea? Is that what the idea of the monitoring is for?
The current plume is very well defined and has been monitored annually for well over a decade, and is stable and shrinking.
Good, thank you.
All right, I have nothing further on this. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment or a question about the proposed installation of monitoring wells at this site, 55 Blue Sky Drive? Hearing nothing further, then we have a negative conditional determination which attaches a few conditions, which essentially means it should be fine if you follow those conditions. All right, so I guess John will review.
Want me to read it, John?
I can do it, I guess.
Okay.
Does Mr. Little have a copy of this?
I have it on my phone. I don't have a paper copy, yes. I did review it briefly earlier.
Okay, so the project description has been covered, the jurisdictional areas have also been covered, so it's buffer zone to wetlands. Other findings, the commission finds that the installation of the wells and borings would not detrimentally affect the wetlands. The wetland boundaries have been delineated in the past for previous filings, so they haven't been redelineated as part of this. Proposed conditions, Condition 2 is that any excavated soil shall be disposed of in a legal manner. 2 is regarding tracking onto the roadways. 3 is water purged during the boring process shall be discharged with permeable surface. I mean, that may be superseded by the LSP, that they may have to purge into some sort of containment, but we'll leave that up to the LSP. There's no cutting of trees allowed, then standard conditions about the right of access and noncompliance.
All right, Mr. Little, any questions on this at all?
No questions.
All right, okay. All right, any changes by the commission? No. Okay, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the proposed monitoring well installations and soil borings within the 100-foot buffer zone under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, located at 25, 45, and 55 Blue Sky Drive?
So moved. Bill?
Second.
Second, Kent?
Okay. Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. A negative conditional determination is approved for this project. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this place is assigned and pass along.
Okay. All right, next we have a continued public hearing, notice of intent, the Blanchard Road right-of-way. This is by the Town of Burlington Engineering Department. It is to construct a much-needed new sidewalk along Blanchard Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair.
So you're
I am Steve.
Stein.
Okay, I am Stephen Hildreth. I'm one of the senior civil engineers with the Town of Burlington Engineering Division. I'd like to first start the meeting off by saying thank you to the commission and John and Eileen for the technical difficulties we faced at the last meeting and their patience through that. So I am here to represent in person and go from there.
Low tech sometimes is the way to go.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so do you want to make any comments on, you recently submitted some things? No. I think we're all set.
Nope.
Is there anything further you need to say, and we can just move this along?
Nope, I think we can go through the draft decision. Thank you.
All right.
Larry, actually, we did receive comments today in the mail,
Oh, yes, sorry, you might have mentioned.
or questions actually from a resident,
Yes.
which I have shown to Mr. Hildreth, but I'll just read aloud. This is an email from David Webb, town meeting member precinct 7.
Yes.
He has 2 questions for tonight's meeting. One, has there been any interaction on this project with the planning board's Blanchard/Wheeler concept study, which studies the entire corridor from South Bedford Street to Middlesex Turnpike? And 2, have the trustees been consulted on the proposed crosswalk from the Mary Cummings Park parking lot to the sidewalk by Oracle? Will this crosswalk be passive or have active lights that pedestrians trigger?
All right, thank you, John. I'll start with the first question. Yes, we have consulted with the planning board and other town departments on this. We feel that our project is developed in such a manner that future projects could move forward and enhance further implementation of the plans that the planning staff and other departments have in the future. So, and then the second question, I have heard from the trustees of Mary Cummings property at the first public meeting that I attended of the planning board, and they are aware of the project, but we plan to reach out further to them once we plan for construction of this project and coordinate any kind of crossings or anything like that. There will be passive crossings, they will not be active crossings, but we are still studying corridor right-of-ways and everything of that, and speed studies, so make sure that we can safely cross pedestrians before we say we can.
Okay, any questions from the commission on those answers? Okay, so are we, is there anything more to discuss from staff point of view?
No, I don't think so. This is going to provide a lot of needed accessibility in an area that is just not very well serviced by sidewalks. It is quite close to both a stream and a wetland, but we don't really think it's going to have any I don't think it's going to have any detrimental effects. It's also going, this project overall is going to have a distinctly positive effect on the stream that runs under Blanchard Road, because they will no longer be discharging completely unfiltered water into the culvert. It will
It's going
now.
to go past through the catch basin first.
Exactly.
Okay, and it will be a deep sump catch basin, I gather?
There will be 2, correct?
2 deep sump catch basins?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, so is there any further comment by the commission on this before we move this along? Anyone have anything? For the sidewalk on Blanchard Road? I guess not. How about, is there anyone in the, this is a public hearing, so is there anybody in the audience that wants to make further comment? I guess not. So I guess we can look at the documents, review the documents, and
Okay, so Steve has seen a copy of this earlier. I'm not sure if he has any issues with anything, but let's quickly go through it. So the project is, as was described a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be 3,400 square feet of pedestrian sidewalk along the northern travel lane of Blanchard Road. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within the 200-foot and bank, and within the 200-foot riverfront area of 2 unnamed streams, one perennial, another locally regulated. That's the filing history. The plan references are to sheet 1 and sheet 2 of a plan set signed and stamped by Stephen Hildreth, PE, which I apparently neglected to say the very first time he became a PE on a previous project. The project involves work that would occur within the 100-foot buffer zone to wetlands, bank and riverfront area. Part of the work would also occur within the zone to a public water supply, which is considered a critical area. The limit of work would be also within the 20-foot no disturb zone along stretches, which I estimated to be around 250 feet, and within 20 feet of bank for maybe 20 feet. So the commission will probably have to vote to waive the 20-foot no disturb setback if you are willing to do so. This will reduce the roadway to a consistent width of 26 feet. Existing shallow catch basins at the easterly end of Blanchard Road will be replaced with deep sump catch basins. The existing flow of untreated stormwater into the culvert close to the westerly extent of the work will be terminated by replacing those catch basins which empty directly into the culvert with drain manhole covers and installing 2 deep sump hooded catch basins. And part of the sidewalk will be pitched away from the road to a stone trench. And the commission finds that this is a suitable design. And then we have the various standards that were met. Other findings, since the entire road is within the riverfront area and the sidewalk is much needed, the commission finds there is no feasible alternative to the approved project layout. And just again, repeating that some of the sidewalk will be within the 20-foot no disturb zones. Stop sharing that one and go on to, and just to remind everybody, since this is a town project, there is not a bond. Start that again, because I never had it. Nope, I didn't do that right. Make sure I'm on the right one. Only. Maybe I have to figure out how to do that faster. Okay, then the order of conditions, again, references the same plan set, signed and stamped by Stephen J. Hildreth, P.E. Most of the conditions are very standard, and both Steve and the commissioners are well versed with them. Jumping down, there will be, he will let us know when erosion controls are in place and a DEP sign is in place.
Say, Eileen, if there's a particular one you're talking from, want to mention which condition number it is?
I'm sorry, I kind of jumped down because all the first batch were standard, so I would jump down to number 30, to the pre-construction conditions where we talk about, well, the 30s, where we talk about erosion controls, and he will be installing, I think we suggested compost tubes. Then prior to installing them, he will let us know, and we will meet on site to go through these conditions. Number 34, there shall be no dewatering permitted on this site. It's probably unlikely that they would need to do so.
Yes, no, they will for the catch basins.
They will for the catch basins, unless we receive a dewatering plan.
Is that, just one question on that, is that an
Yeah.
administrative or is that a board approved thing?
No,
That's-
we can do that
Okay,
administratively,
thank you.
unless it ends up being really complicated. At the end of the day, the applicant shall manually sweep sediments from paved surfaces, so keep the road clean as you go along. Jumping down to pollution control conditions, these are all standard as well. If there's any spills or you should let us notify all the appropriate parties immediately. No refueling within 100 feet of a wetland. Down to drainage and stormwater management, Stephen or another design engineer, another PE will oversee the installation of the drainage trench and the catch basins. And the last condition is about describes what you need to do to get your certificate of compliance.
Okay, let's see if there's any, Indra, you have anything on these conditions at all? You're all set?
I'm all set.
All right, anyone on the commission that's present have any comments? I have one, I'm not sure whether it should be a condition or not, but remember we talked at the site that that the commission should request that you ask the contractor to pick up any trash along the road. We can codify that language in here that where that you, the client, could do that, or we can just do it informally. I'm not sure there's a preferred way, but,
I think the informal way is probably the better way to handle it. So-
okay,
And I can work with the contractor in the field, so
all right. So
best suffice that manner.
I would be completely gratified if you, for two things. One is if you get back to us and told us you have talked with them about it at
Yep.
some point. And two, if they actually helped and picked some stuff up, because
Absolutely.
it's an unsightly mess to see trash everywhere, and we don't have many opportunities to actually go do this. So where it's along a whole road, and there is some, not a lot, but there's some, it would be a very big help and very much appreciated.
Nope,
As you
understood.
can tell, I'm really into that.
No, I understand completely.
Win this conversation, business you should talk about here.
Okay, so is there anything else? You have any questions on these things?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I guess we can, could I therefore have a motion to close the hearing for DEP file number 122-685?
So moved. Bill?
Second?
Second, Ken.
All right, so we have, all right, Indra, how do you vote on closing the hearing?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. This hearing is now closed. Could I have a motion to accept the findings under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, for the project at 78, project at Blanchard Road right away?
So moved, Indra.
Second?
Second. Bill?
All right. Indra, how do you vote on the findings?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, again by a vote of 5-0. The findings are approved for the Blanchard Road project under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. Could I have a motion to approve the order of conditions for the project and Blanchard Road under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and the State Wetlands Protection
Oh,
Act?
that's a good point.
So moved. Bill?
Second, Ken.
All right. Indra, how do you approve on the conditions?
Yes.
Kent, on the conditions?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. The permit conditions for the Blanchard Road project are approved.
Is it too late to ask you if you want to or need to vote on the waiving the 20-foot no disturb?
You know, if you hadn't spoke right at that split second, you would have got the question back to you.
Oh, well, it was Steve's question. I actually forgot.
Yes, I was thinking that it's not, I don't think it's too late to vote the waiver. We just need to state the reasoning why the waiver for this project is being considered. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve a waiver of allowing work in the 20-foot no disturb zone for the reasons that, for reasons of safety, this project is in the overwhelming public interest. For reasons of passive recreation, it's in the overwhelming public interest. And because the project cannot be completed without going into the 20-foot. Does that sound about?
Yes, that
Is there any
sounds-
other reasons where, no, does that sound like it's sufficient?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so hopefully the people taking the notes will get that. Is there a motion to that effect, please?
So moved, Emily.
Thank you. Second?
Second. Bill?
All right, so we're voting on the motion for a waiver to the 20-foot no disturb. Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. That waiver for this project is approved.
All right, I thank the chair and the board's time very much.
Thanks,
Steve, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Good luck with this project.
Thank you. Look
I
forward to
look
it.
forward to walking the entire length.
As do I.
Excellent.
Steve? Don't forget your pen.
Yeah, I was gonna leave it and get it tomorrow.
That's all right.
All right.
I saw it fly.
Did it fly off? I missed
right.
that.
I had
So-
an unfortunate fumble on the very first opening net.
John, on one of the sheets, Emily's signed next to my name.
Saw it. It's an erasable pen.
Is it?
It is.
That's probably not a legal
All right.
signature.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna cross
Might
it
not
out.
be.
Is that true? Can I
Not a
borrow,
legal signature,
can I,
it's a
I'll
legal
erase it and borrow a pen?
Is it?
But,
If it's an erasable pen, is that a legal signature?
I don't know, I've never
No.
heard of an erasable pen before, to tell you the truth.
Thought it was whiteout.
Yeah, can I borrow your pen?
That was the erasable pen.
And I'll need that one back.
Sure. It's technology that came, in the 20th century it came into being.
I've heard of invisible ink, but,
I thought it was called whiteout.
All right.
Hi, this is Mary Massey. I'm Mary Massey. I'm online, okay?
Sure. Are you
Okay.
here for specific projects? It's here for the next one.
next one.
The next one.
Lawton Road, yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
Well, Emily, how convenient that it was erasable ink.
I will not sign with that again.
That's all right, not a problem.
Get into trouble if you sign checks with that, right?
There you go. All right. All right, so now we're on item number 6. That's a continued public hearing. It was a notice of intent for a project located at 78 Mountain Road, proposed by Kenneth Gillis. It is to construct a new residential dwelling, and I believe the DEP number is still pending,
no, it actually came in 122-687.
122-687. Gentlemen, good evening. All right, so go through your introductions and you know how you're affiliated to the project, and then you can talk first, because I know you submitted some materials.
Yeah, my name's Joe Carrier. I'm here with Kenny Gillis, the owner of 78 Mountain Road.
All right,
And
Eastern Land Survey had submitted all the, I believe, the rest of the paperwork this morning, and I forwarded it to Eileen. And that's it.
well, that was brief.
I think we had everything.
I missed one on the other page too. All right, so do you folks want to go over mention what's been submitted, or would you like the staff to kind of carry that? It's up to you.
Put everything on the phone. You, I'm assuming nobody had time to review it?
I
mean, so late.
glanced at it before the meeting, but that was like
Yeah, we
20
just-
minutes before the meeting.
We just
started.
glanced at it ourselves. But it had everything from the stormwater, the dry wells,
Right.
the test pits. You know, it's got all your elevations for your floor grades above the water table.
Right. Okay. All right, so John or Eileen, could you give us a rundown on where we are? This is a project where quite a few trees were taken down. It was a habitat to begin with, and now, because there was a house going in, then it's now, the trees are down. And there is a stream that is, the area is in the, probably the outer riverfront, the outer 100 riverfront. The staff will correct me if that's wrong. And as a riverfront itself, there happens to be a house in between. So it's not the best of riverfronts, but still could be considered a habitat that it was. So let's, John, do you want to make comments on this one, or Eileen?
I can add something to it. So, as you said, you're exactly right, Larry. This is a proposed house in the outer riverfront. It was pretty treed beforehand. They took down at least 36 trees in advance of the hearing, not realizing that they shouldn't do so. They have since had Leah Basbanes do a wetland survey, which, to be honest, was fairly minimal. I mean, there probably wasn't very much to see or to talk about, but we didn't get any data sheets or anything. Also, she did probably through no real fault of her own, and also very minimal alternatives plan. I would like to see something a little bit beefier than that, which really just said that the alternative is a smaller house or no house, which we don't even want to consider. I have a couple of questions and a couple more comments. So what they propose right here is actually a very small limit of work. They think they can do all the work within 4,500 square feet. My point of pointing that out is that since all the trees are now down, it's kind of moot. It doesn't have to be that small. They could move out a little bit. They also provided a stormwater report. So they did 5 test pits, and they did, which is good. This is great. And
They did what testing?
5 test pits.
5 test pits, yes.
And they found that the water, they didn't even hit water. They hit bedrock before they hit groundwater. So it was pretty, they have plenty of room to play with for infiltration. They are proposing 1 dry well, 2 dry wells as far as I know, and also a really enormous trench. Actually, sorry, 3 trenches. I wonder if they realize that these trenches are 3 feet wide and 3 or 3.5 feet deep. They're substantial. But if they're built that big, then I had a quick look over the numbers, and they do seem to work. They're just very substantial.
That's the trench, or if as you're looking at the house around the left-hand side.
They're 1 foot.
And that, no,
This one is
well,
the driveway
well,
one.
then that doesn't match what the stormwater report says. The stormwater report seems to say that they're going to be 3 feet wide. If I
Yes, 3
understood that
feet wide,
correctly.
1 foot deep.
3 feet wide, okay, that's fine, if the numbers work. I do have a question, actually, it's about the grading, which Joe sort of alluded to. These are spot levels, right? So what are these lines? Are these existing, or is that proposed grading? Are you going to be grading the site, is my question?
These are all existing grades outside of the easement. Do you have a source easement? Anything outside the easement is existing grade. The only grading we're gonna do is inside the easement. Which you know, looks like 2 to 3 foot topo lines he's got going around the house.
Directly around the house. Okay,
Eileen,
Yeah, I'll have
you
to look at that
said
bit more
there was 3 infiltration trenches. I see 1 big one.
well, I think the fact that it stops and starts, they counted it as 3. So if you look, let me zoom in even more. Oh, you're looking at the drawing?
I'm looking at the drawing. It looks
Okay,
like one
can-
continuous trench, so to speak.
There's the one that's down the bottom beside the driveway that says it's number 3.
Okay,
Then the one that kind of curves around the corner, the back left corner of the house, is drip edge number 2.
yeah.
And then the one in the front
Oh, that one in the
Right.
front, got it, got it.
is number 1. So they are proposing quite a lot of storage of the stormwater.
Right, okay. All right, so I think what we have to do here is, if there are issues remaining, we don't want you to come back and have those same issues. We want you to solve them. Okay, and we don't want to unnecessarily just take up time from meeting to meeting to meeting because we weren't clear, certainly on our part, because we weren't clear. So we want to make sure we end up with the same list before you leave here, if there is anything. Okay, so Eileen or John, are there concerns or issues you have with this site?
Sorry, I had gone back to the stormwater management plan definitely says 3 feet wide and 3 feet deep. So that's what the numbers went by?
Yep.
So just, you'll need to just, so that's one concern. They just need to,
3.
whatever the word is, just clear that up. Figure out the numbers, whether it's really going to be 3 feet deep. In which case, that's fine. They just need to match. And just another concern was if we can get anything more substantial for the alternatives analysis.
Okay, so what I have as an issue, you need more wording on the alternatives over what your consultant gave us. That's being requested. And what I would have envisioned, I sort of had the same reaction, but I wasn't going to say anything unless the staff mentioned it, is that I expected that you would say that the easement extends, so many feet wide on the property and something, make a little bit more specific case for why this is the best you can do as an alternative. There wasn't a lot of specifics. It was like, we pushed it forward and it's as small as it can, and we don't like the alternative of a no-build, which I wouldn't either, so.
I agree. It just needed more substance.
So I think they can probably solve that pretty quickly with a little bit more detail as to looking at the specifics of the site.
Larry,
Okay,
John
so
just,
that's number one.
John just reminded me of another issue that I forgot to mention. I'm sorry, I mentioned it earlier. It was about plantings. There's no mention of plantings.
Okay. All right, so maybe I'll discuss some of this. All right, and anything else? We can go.
I just have some concerns about the way the driveway pitch is. I think a substantial portion of the driveway, the way the grading is shown on the driveway will not go into the trench.
Right.
And I think it really needs to pitch more towards the left, and it's sort of not pitching enough towards the left. I mean, it's pitching somewhat towards the left, but I think a lot of it will just bypass it.
All right, okay. So I have three things. All right, so let's go around to the commission to see if there's anything else. Indra? Okay. Emily, anything more on this one?
I think just to echo what Eileen said, in the alternatives plan, there is a sentence stating restoration of altered areas will be done to the extent feasible. And I just was curious what the extent feasible was, what the hope was there, if there were some examples of what that might look like.
On the plantings?
Yeah, so I'm just re-highlighting what Eileen had said, and that was for the consultant.
Okay, all set? Okay, yeah. Kent?
No, I mean, just with the number of trees that were taken down, I mean, I gotta agree with Emily and Eileen that really needs to be more substantiated, because with the number of trees, and then, I guess a question for Eileen, do you think that with the number of trees taken down, do you think the infiltration meets, like, what they're proposing actually will meet the needs of, like, with, like, water runoff?
Yeah, I did look at the numbers today, and the numbers, what they did was actually very much sort of pencil and paper, but it seems to work, because they didn't really address the rest of the site or the fact the trees were gone, but it's two separate things. What they have proposed here for the stormwater does seem to potentially work for the house and the driveway. It's sort of, it's separate from the trees.
We're gonna go back to a related topic, though, in a minute.
Okay, and I was just curious, like, what, like, you have the infiltration trenches, I mean, I know what a dry well is, but what's the purpose of that on the side? I'm just curious, where is that located?
Sorry, the purpose of what?
The dry well? Like, this says one precast dry well?
It's just extra. It's just another,
The downspouts are gonna tie right into it.
Oh, okay. Okay. All I had.
Okay. All right. Bill?
I had a couple of questions. One was what Kent mentioned, that, the runoff calculations discuss the roof and the driveway, but they don't take into effect, or do they, the fact that the topography has changed, that there's no longer a wooded area, it's now gonna be a lawn area, and what is the difference in runoff in such a change? I don't know, that's usually calculated based on the type of,
it actually,
ground cover.
as I said, it was very simple calculations, but it actually did for the post condition, I'm sorry. He did use numbers for lawn. It was for something like more than 75% grass,
Okay.
rather than woods. Did say woods for the which it was. at
Okay.
one point.
My biggest concern is in the stormwater report, they show the results of the analysis and the calculations and the, above the handwritten calculations. And they're showing, including the storage and infiltration volume, that the 100-year storm has a volume increase of 530 cubic feet post-development, which contradicts our regulations. That says, projects shall be designed to ensure post-development discharge volumes do not exceed pre-development values.
Right.
So, obviously, the calculations are showing it's not sufficient.
I did notice that too, and I actually was meant to speak to John about it. Most of the projects that we get already have something on site, so it's a redevelopment project. This one, this had nothing. So it was going from a nothing state to having something. So, John, that's a good question for you. Oh, it's not in there. It's in the, it was in
It
this.
was in the NOI.
No, it was in the stormwater report. He's pointing out that the post-development shows an increased runoff, but the point is, there was nothing there before. It was just a bare.
And what is the rate? What's the rate above it?
They're bigger too.
Okay, yeah, so that's even more of a problem. So
The rates are all
the
higher.
rate, the post-development rate is higher as well, so, yeah, so they need to hold more water on site.
Is that the action item here? That they need to hold more water on site?
Well, they need to reduce the runoff rate, make sure the calculations are correct, and come up with one that shows a reduction in both rate and volume post-development,
Well,
or up to the 100-year storm.
what they're doing is that they're using a curve number when they do the calculations, which is a descriptor of the type of surface you have, and that basically is the percent runoff, so to speak.
Right.
And they're doing an existing condition of a curve number of 55, okay? And then the majority of it, they are using something called greater than 75% grass cover. They're using a curve number of 61. So they're going from 55 in the current condition, okay, where it gets held, the water gets held up, to 61. If they were a much higher curve number in the developed condition, I don't know if that's the right range for the curve number calculations. But if I mean, impervious is like 98, a curve number of 98. 98% of it runs off is kind of, I think, the way to look
Okay,
at it.
so the lower number is
The lower
better.
number is less, more goes into the ground. So they're going on from 55 in their calculations on existing to the majority of the site, except for the impervious surface, is going from 55 to 61 in the developed case. So that results in a pretty small amount of runoff.
Increased runoff.
Yeah, quite a bit of runoff. So, I mean, it actually minimizes the amount of runoff for the purposes of them doing this design, okay? In other words, if they had the whole site at 98, a whole bunch more runoff would come off,
Oh,
or
true, if
stormwater.
they're paving the whole site, yeah.
Well, if they're paving the whole site. So, they're only going from 55 to 61.
Well, the 61 is the lawn, that doesn't include the driveway, the house.
Well, yeah, but if you look at it,
No, I think that was the average, wasn't it?
the
Is that
majority.
the average?
Was that, as I recall, was that not the average, Larry?
Out of 13,000 square feet, 11,100 is a 61 curve number, and 2165 is a 98, because it's impervious.
Right, okay, it wasn't.
Okay? So I'm questioning, using such a low number, I would have thought it would have been higher, but I'm not an expert on that. It's hard for me to make
On
a case.
grass?
Yeah, I mean,
No, I think it's something like that.
is it? But here's the point that I was, did I let you go, keep going? Or
No, I'm done. I just wanted to point out that their calculations, the numbers they show didn't meet the our regulations for decreased runoff and volume.
Okay.
And this is April. and I see for every year 1, year 5, year 10, and year in 100 year, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, all the runoffs are higher in post-development.
Runoff rate, correct.
Runoff rate and volume also.
Well, I think those numbers are at the top. I'm trying to, why those numbers are different from the next chart. I think the difference is the next chart includes the best management practices on site, which is the storage. The top chart does not show, is without the storage, the bottom is with the storage. Now, they don't show the runoff rate with the storage. That chart, they just show the volume, and the volume is increased on the 100-year storm. The rate may or may not be, we haven't seen that in this summary chart.
Well, here's the thing. I wanted to add a little bit more to this on this one. The way I look at this site, and you're showing existing grades, the majority of the water is going to run off on a site where you removed all the trees. It's too bad you did that because the concern would be less if you left some of the trees in back. It's heading in a northeast direction.
3.
The water is running, the topography runs off in a northeast direction, sort of like aimed at the neighbor's house. And I am concerned that, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't look at the stormwater report. So anyway, if you read through the stormwater report, right before those tables we're looking at, it says, those are the calculations without mitigation. That's what the effect would be without mitigation. That's not with this proposed infiltration trench or dry well.
That doesn't
But the
change.
second chart has a column that says the storage and infiltration volume is in the calculation of 966 cubic feet. I mean, why would they list it if it wasn't included in the calculations? And then the runoff volume is now 0 instead of the
Oh, I'm
positive
not sure,
numbers that it
sorry.
was above on everything except the 100-year storm. I think that top chart is what you're saying, unmitigated, and then below is showing with the 966 cubic feet of storage volume.
Well, I think if we're all arguing it, in that case, we just need clarification, because we're not all understanding the same thing for this, so it needs just some clarification,
Well.
and to make sense.
Okay, but that's not the point I was going to make.
Okay?
Okay, I sort of got derailed from, we went back to Bill's point. Okay, so my point is that what I am wondering is that about the amount of water that is going to be heading towards Mr. Adorian's property, at the back of the property. Now that you're just going to have grass, you're not going to have trees, the water's not going to be soaked up. Okay, hundreds of gallons will be soaked up on a daily basis, but now that's not going to happen. So the water seems to me that it's heading there. And I don't see how it's going to be intercepted from behind the wall, further back from the wall. I think it's going to be hitting his property, and I think it's a problem waiting to happen, is what I'm saying. What I somehow expected is, I would have expected in a site like this, and it may not be feasible, is that there might have been a drainage swale heading towards perhaps the front of the property with some type of a deep dry well or something like that if the soil supported it. Because I think all the water is going to, the wall only goes partway, the existing retaining wall, I don't know if that would stop anything, but it just seems like the water is heading right for his property from the back of your yard. And I don't know what's going to stop it. And I think he's going to have a very wet yard. Does this make sense to anybody?
Yeah, I see what you're
Except me.
saying, but I think that increasing the plantings will also help.
Eventually.
Eventually, yes.
Don't forget, inside the easement is Eversource. They cut all those trees. There's no, there's very little vegetation inside the easement.
Yeah, but the steepest grades are where you cut. Okay, in other words, you cut, you cut northeast of the thing that says Lot A, 20,130 square feet record, and the steepest grades seem to be after that, closer to his property. And I just, without all those trees there, I have a feeling he's gonna have a very wet yard, unless, and I don't think you can rely on baby plantings to deal with it. So I'm gonna just write it down, because we can't solve it here. But, and I'm not sure, even, I'm not telling you that you need a drainage swale and a dry well towards the front for channel all the water in case it does come down there. I'm not designing it for you. But I might have expected something like that. I don't know if that's even feasible.
Forget Mary, I keep muting her.
All right, so as far as the plantings, is there a planting plan somewhere that I didn't see?
I had one question on plants, just from the drawing itself. That drawing is still showing I think it was a huge tree, a 48-inch tree in front of the property. Is that still there, or is that gone?
Eversource has a guide wire attached to it.
So it's still there, the tree?
Still there, yeah. Got the tree, the poles come
I'm
down.
trying to remember. Good. Glad to hear that.
So, I mean, in a area that was heavily wooded and significant, the commission would consider somewhat significant. I'm wondering do we normally specify like a trunk caliper, like 6 inches up, a certain trunk diameter caliper for trees?
I would suggest that their consultant confer with Eversource. There's, even outside the easement, Eversource will cut trees if they're over a certain height. They do that on our conservation lands, so she should ask them about species that are allowable, because you don't want to plant trees and then have Eversource come and cut them down, so she should confer with appropriate species.
And what's,
And then you get what you can. I mean, it's not easy to get species these days, you know.
well, I mean, I took a look at what, that, for example, the Conservation Commission in Reading has established a specification for replanting in this situation. They have specified 6 inches above the root ball that you need a 3-inch caliper, and the tree should be anywhere from 4 to 10 feet, depending on what you're buying. And that's a fairly substantial tree. And I'm wondering if we should start doing that, and we can think about that before you draft your decision. But and the other thing is, I'll tell these folks, the most critical thing when you plant trees, and you want them to succeed because they're going to help mitigate any potential problems to your neighbor. That's why you need them. If you don't water them, it's the crucial for the first year for plant establishment. Having like a drip hose or something like that.
Landscaper?
What's that?
Is he a landscaper?
No, we would hire a landscaper to do all the plantings.
But if you don't maintain it, the issue is having the landscaper do it.
Yep.
I mean, and they'll give you the guarantee, it's great. But I would not be in favor on this site of giving any bond back or even issuing the certificate if it looks like they're dying or they're dead, the trees. So I just think you should make sure that they need about 1 inch of water at least a week when it's not a big drought, extreme heat. Okay, so is there anything else? I think I went on there a bit. Okay, is there anyone in the audience? Now, okay, so is there anybody in the audience online that would like to make some comments? Please state your name and or raise your hand electronically, I guess.
Mary, if you want to speak, you're going to have to unmute because
I just unmuted.
I had muted
I
her.
just unmuted her.
Well,
Mary, would you like to say a few words? She
Can you
cannot.
hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Okay, you may.
Okay, good, thank you.
State your name and address for the record, and then the microphone is yours.
Okay, good, thank you. My name is Mary McNamara Massey. I own 79 Mountain Road and lived there my entire life. And I'm interested in the property, the way that people were discussing the plantings and also the, it's just, I'm not certain, I'm not an engineer or anything, but I'm trying to understand how all this like light and all this stuff comes in, because the point is, right now, even now, and there's only, some minimal stuff done, but maybe a little bit more minimal, but it has changed the whole front of my house. It's like already feels like it's summer in there, when the sun's out. So I just want to make sure we're addressing the height of the trees and all of that stuff that you guys are already talking about. So that's about it for me. And obviously any water that's coming from Mr. Manians, and just to make sure that that's contained within his property, then good to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. Thank you for your comments. As you can tell from listening to this meeting, we have expressed some similar concerns over this project.
Yes.
Sure. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak on this project? I guess it's listed as 78 Mountain Road. No. How about anybody in the audience? Anybody in the audience that would like to talk about 78 Mountain Road? No. All right, let's go over this list. I have 5 things. Maybe I missed some things. I'm not sure. Let's all have the same list.
Yep.
Alternatives analysis. Eileen asked for a bit more specificity on the constraints on the project and why it is the way it is. It's required by our regulations. The state regulations and our regulations require that.
Yep.
Because it's riverfront. We have something about planting. I think we need, John suggested that you check with Eversource regarding acceptable plants that are close to a right-of-way, and we need a proposed plan of what you want to do.
Yep.
That's number 2. Number 3, the driveway grading seems to miss part of the trench, and so we need some spot grades that, so that all the runoff, the driveway is crowned and goes in that direction, I guess, or slopes in that direction, maybe not crowned. Number 4 is there's a need to reduce the runoff in the proposed conditions because it doesn't meet the requirement for decreased runoff. Did I say that right?
Correct. The runoff volume in the 100-year storm currently as shown is not 0 or less. It's actually increased.
Okay. All right, John, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And the other one is the one that I flagged. There's concern about the amount of stormwater that's going to run off onto the neighbors, at least their backyard, filling them up, at least from what I see on the plan. So I think that's an issue. I don't know what to do about it, but the issue, it has to be addressed. I think if you have an engineer, maybe he can fix that. Do you have anything else? Anybody have anything else?
Nope, I got my laundry list.
What was the DEP number again? Last three.
122687.
Okay, so, the next meeting is, April 13th, 2023, and, we need some time to assimilate it, particularly for the commissioners, but particularly for the staff, because if they think it's going to go, with a permit being issued, they need some time to look at the stuff you give them, and then draft the permit around all the stuff that's been submitted. Okay?
I'll just echo Larry's point, because I mean, we've seen on other projects where like, you know, people get into trouble like with water runoff. So I think it's in your best interest too, to like, you know, so you're not having to deal with, you're dealing with within the planning stage now, so we're not getting into it. Or if, you know, if it gets approved and then where you're having then problems with your neighbors because you're having excess runoff. So I think that's, it seems like a lot, but I think that's what Larry and Bill are trying to point out.
Yeah, we'll get them back out there and do a site
Yeah.
visit with all of us.
Yeah, so I think it seems like a lot, but I think it's in your own best interest too, to, with your neighbors, so you're not having in the future, having like runoff problems, because we've seen that within town where that has happened, and it's, if you deal with it now, then you're, you know what I mean, like, it's not gonna be perfect, but I think it'll help to remediate, you know, so you don't get in that situation, so, if that's
All
what
right,
I.
thank you, Kent.
Yep.
Okay, anything else from anyone? All right, then, could I have a motion to continue the hearing for 78 Mountain Road to the April 13th, 2023 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission? Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second? Second. All right, so we have, all right, Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Chair votes yes by a vote of 5-0. The hearing for 78 Mountain Road is continued to the April 13th meeting. Obviously, request a continuance if you're going to go to the next meeting after
Next
that.
one, okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your help with
Very
this.
Good evening.
Thanks, bye, Joe.
Okay. All right.
That's a lot of people.
All right, so I guess we're getting to a public hearing. John, would you think we might want to do both at the same time, or are they individually?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to just open them both. Sure. That way they can talk about both.
Whatever.
All right, so, here we go. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing, during which time the request to amend an order of conditions, 122-537, filed by NEEP Investor Holdings LLC, care of National Development, for changes to approved layout, including building and parking structure, extending the Riverwalk, and redesigning stormwater management features at the district in Burlington. This proposed work is within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands and riverfront area pursuant to the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. At the same time, we will also open the hearing, the second, a new public hearing for the purpose of taking all information related to a notice of intent in Burlington Wetland Bylaw for the same applicant, the NEEP Investors Holdings LLC, care of National Development, for the construction of a new lab building and parking garage and improvements to landscape and utilities, and it's all located at 1200 and 1700 District Ave in Burlington. The proposed work would be within riverfront area pursuant to the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. Both hearings will be opened, and the information, if you'd like to look at the information for both of these hearings, there is a website on the Conservation Commission webpage, and we'll have all the documents listed. Okay, so with that, gentlemen, good evening, and ladies. Okay, you brought all the reinforcements here.
Trying to get you outnumbered, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Good evening, Mr.
Better take my
Chairman.
glasses off for this one.
All right.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
she'll have to give you permission.
Oh, no, I think it should be allowed already.
All right, so.
Let me know if you have any trouble.
All right, so I guess you'll do the introductions and state the affiliations, and
Sure.
then the
Yeah.
floor is, of course, yours.
All right, great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, staff of the record attorney Mark Vaughn here tonight representing National Development, the owners of the district, formerly known as New England Executive Park. I think it's a property that hopefully you're all familiar with and frequent on occasion, but with me are a couple of folks from National Development, owners of the property. We have Katie Snyder with National, and Ashling Kerr, who's hiding in the back row. And then we have representatives of VHB also, the engineering firm of record and responsible for the notice of intent filing here. Eric Gerard and Laura Leitch, am I pronouncing it correct? Okay, great. And we have Chris Jones, who's our landscape architect as well, that's with us. So all part of the development team for this proposal. So this is just a listing of the project team. There's some other elements and disciplines that are part of our team that are not here tonight, but just to give you a sense that we have a pretty robust and intense group of people that have been working on this project, and we're currently in the midst of various permitting elements, including, this filing that has been made with you. But, so this is just very briefly, I know I don't want to keep you here all night, but just to give you a little bit of history, I think everyone is familiar with the park in terms of its history, but it, formerly known as New England Executive Park, was there as kind of at the time, a premier office park, I think when it was originally developed, and then over time became somewhat antiquated. And then back in 2009, we worked collaboratively with the town to adopt the Planned Development District zoning, the PDD zoning for that park that would allow for a mixed-use campus to be redeveloped, bringing in some amenities, and also allowing for such things that weren't allowed in the zoning before, such as structured parking and things like that. So that PDD was adopted by town meeting. National Development acquired the property in 2013 from Equity Office, the prior owner, and embarked upon a phased master plan build-out that has been implemented in large part with the exception of the Phase 3 element, which was approved by the planning board and by your commission, but has not yet been built, and that's what they're looking to really modify, is the Phase 3, which was going to be the 5-over-5 office building, which we'll talk about in a moment, along with a retail building that was going to be nearer Burlington Mall. But I mentioned some of the amenities and things that have been brought to the park, and I think this slide touches upon that. But you're familiar with the restaurants, the hotel, some of the other retail components that have been added. So really what is before you tonight, we have the amended notice of intent filing that's been submitted for the property where immediately adjacent to the building that we're actually a tenant in, the Tower Building, there was a proposal to build an office building there before, and that has not been built. The order is still valid, but we're looking to replace that with a life science and lab building and structured garage that would be adjacent to it. So that is the notice of intent filing. So this plan here shows what was previously approved in terms of that Phase 3 element. You can see on the bottom right portion of the screen, that was the office and garage building right there. And then building, the retail building is not within any conservation jurisdiction, but that hasn't been built either. But it's not part of what we had filed previously or now with the commission. So, and then there was the intent to also make improvements to the parking, the 700 parking garage in the rear, which we've also highlighted, but that's not part of the program anymore. So,
Mr. Vaughn, just a
Yeah.
quick organization question. I got two sets of drawings. One says, it goes, the full build and layout and materials for this project, and then I got an amended site plan. Which one should I be looking at now? I got full sets of drawings on both.
the amended.
The amended, that's what I thought, so I can discard the other ones, right?
No, they'll be doing that too. Sorry.
Next year.
That's for the notice of intent filing for another portion of the property. There's a separate filing. which is the NOI. Yeah.
That's what I thought, I just wanted to double check.
So, again, what we're looking to do for the amended notice of intent is really to amend what was previously approved so that we can go forward with a new project, which we feel is, well, Eric, why don't I maybe segue over to you, and you can talk a little bit about what we're talking about doing. But if the commission recalls, and I'm not sure who was on here at the time, I know, Larry, you've been on. Bill, I'm not sure if you were on the commission at the time, but the building that was approved by the commission also called for the construction of a river walk that was going to be located along Vine Brook there. That has not been constructed yet because we haven't gone forward with the building that was previously approved. But the intention now is to be able to go forward with a much more robust river walk that would be built along that Vine Brook perimeter. And it would be part of this new lab and garage building that we're talking about on the bottom right-hand corner. So perhaps a good segue into what the project is, if you want to take it from there.
Eric Gerard, I'm a civil engineer with VHB. And just to kind of reorient you to the project, as Mark was saying, the bottom right is the lab building A and garage A, which was formerly the 5/5 office, and then the Riverwalk area to the top of the page. And those were previously approved, so moving forward with the amendment, there are the project benefits associated with this project that are reducing the overall impacts of that previous order. So we feel the amendments.
For my clarification, the building A and the garage A were both previously approved, the garage included?
There was,
Okay.
It was 5 stories of office on top of a 5-story garage.
Okay.
That was what the previous proposal was that was approved, where it says office and garage. It was all one complex.
Gotcha.
It was kind of known as the 5/5 building, but it was never built. So that's been scrapped, although the permits are still valid. And we're looking to go forward with a new lab building with a garage building adjacent to it instead of being below. Yeah.
Thank you.
in the area shown, so we were able to pull the building a little bit further away from the resource area down at Building A. We were able to reduce the overall impervious areas within the riverfront area that is down there by just shy of 1,000 square feet, in addition to some stormwater management benefits as well. Along that edge, there is a nice rain garden today, so we are reusing that. It was designed and built, incorporated with all of that 5/5 intent, so we're not changing that as well. And then the proposed improvements as well on the river walk, or the brook walk, we're able to pull the limits of pavement further away than what was previously proposed. That pavement up there today, it's pretty close to the bank, and the previous approval, that walk was really tight. So Chris can get into that a little bit more with the Vine Brook path in detail.
Yeah, I'll just take a few seconds. Chris Jones with IBI Group, landscape architect. The top slide represents what we were able to achieve with the initial phases back in 2015, which was a small portion of the Vine Brook Walk and the overlook. I'm sure you have all been out there, and we placed the little overlook near the falls, and the walkway actually terminated, and you had to leave the trail right at 1600, building 1600. And as Eric touched on, in taking a closer look at this, we felt it was really important to make this a quality environment and experience. We ought to take a significant portion of the head-in parking that occurred along the frontage of the brook and give that 18 to 20 feet back to the brook itself as a more enriched trail space. So we've really, we feel we've created a much better end solution. And then another part of this that was key is that we found ourselves in the original design getting all the way down to building 800 and not having a great way to get back into the development. And so we took a really close look at the area at the end of 800. This is a close-up.
Is that near the garage?
Yeah, right at where the Building 800 and the garage come together. And right behind Building 800, there's a large paved area that's for loading. And so the proposal is to shift the loading to the north and then create a significant green island or peninsula, if you will, that allows us to make a much more quality pedestrian connection that feeds back into, towards District Road. If you've seen the plans, the proposal for vegetation is a pretty diverse mix of shade trees, evergreen and understory, oaks, maples, hickory, tupelo, pines and fir, and red buds and service berries. And the intent is, there are some existing evergreens along the edge of the brook today. We want to fill in with a little bit more of that and then locate the mix of shade and understory. So it sort of has a woodland edge, forest edge experience as you're approaching. And that'll be consistent with what we had done previously, really creating a unified experience along the brook.
Two more overlooks.
And 2 additional overlooks, that's correct.
Additional what?
Overlooks. So they're sort of equally spaced apart. One that's sort of strategically located at, what we'll talk about in a minute is what we're calling a new brook park that has a larger aperture and it's sort of a visual connection to the brook. And then one located at the end here before you depart.
So this is the amendment that you filed, the first thing I.
Correct. Just much more enhanced, yes.
All right, and is this the right time to talk a little bit more about the Riverwalk? Or should we wait?
This is the right time.
Right time, this sounds like the right time, because I don't know what you had in mind, you guys. Okay, so I'd like to just throw that open to the commission, because it's such a big project. I think when we hit something that's of real interest to the commission, I thought that we would do it. So first I'll go to staff and Eileen and John. At this point, I know it's new. Do you have any comments on particularly this extension of a trail further down along Vine Brook?
So you previously approved this, but this is sort of an enhanced version of what you approved several years ago. So it's great. I mean, I think most of you have been out to the portion that is constructed into the overlook, and it's great. You wish it were longer, and this will double it or triple it, so it'll be a much nicer walk. And the way they're tying it back into the park is great, because you get to the end of it, you either turn around, or now you'll be able to feed back into the park. So, I mean, it's a great amenity for the people working in the park.
Could you describe the feedback into the park, what you mean by that?
So if you see the arrows that point back into the park, there's just to the south of Building 1600, Building 1700 in that diagram would not be there, and there's a large connection. It's in this drawing, but it just caught me by surprise. So there's a sort of a connection back into the park, and then the one I just described at the southern end, at Building 800, will have a new walkway that allows you to connect back in. And prior to this, there was no walking experience whatsoever.
Right, okay, so it allows you, okay.
Full loop.
So does anyone on the commission want to comment on this at all?
I think it's wonderful that, increasing that walkway, the existing walkway and the overlook at looking at the Burlington's only waterfall is a unique feature. And extending that with 2 more overlooks would be great. I really like the fact that you're able to pull the walkway away from the bank and almost protect the entire 20-foot, area with the bank. Give the brook more protection. So I think it's a great idea for that part of the project, yeah.
Okay, anyone else want to comment? I have a comment, but I'll see. Any other commissioners? Indra, you have anything?
Yeah, I also like it actually. I echo Bill's comment. And this enhanced plan, this sidewalk extension, I really, really like it. That I have one more question to Mark. Did I hear correctly that it was approved for, not for this one, for a 5-story office building over a 5-story garage?
Yes, it was, Indra. So that was approved previously for the same location where we're talking about this lab building and the adjacent garage. So that was approved by the planning board, I want to say back in 2015, 14 timeframe. So it wasn't built, but the permits are still valid and in place, so.
10-story, so there's a total 10-story, 5-story garage, and over 5-story garage, there are 5-story office?
Yeah, it was compliant with the, as you know, we're in the building right there, which is I still call it the Bay Bank Tower building, but
Yeah.
700 District Ave, but that's an 11-story building. So it was
Okay.
going to be comparable, not as tall, but comparable to that, which was approved as part of the PDD for the height. They allowed it to be higher as you worked your way towards the highway, so.
Thank you, okay.
Okay, anyone else on the commission? I wanted to bring up something. Sir, are you the landscape architect?
Yes.
What was your name again?
Chris Jones.
Chris, okay, Jones, okay. Mr. Jones, I think this is fantastic that you're able to complete it. So what are my comments are not meant to diminish any of what you're proposing. Sure. Because we were the ones who were advocating it from the beginning, and now you're coming in and advocating we're going to complete it but make it better. That's what you're saying.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially. But however, there's an additional challenge that I would like to sort of throw on the table that maybe you've thought of and haven't articulated yet. And it's a challenge that goes in two directions. One is that the town has had their eye on improving connectivity in town for walkability. And this project already, as you're proposing the amendment now, goes to that point. However, we have talked about, in that direction, using Vine Brook as a focal point, perhaps even pulling back Vine Brook, which I'm not expecting this project is going to do any of that. But I'm wondering if, at least heading in that direction towards the mall, whether there is a way of demarcating, like, I don't know the right materials, but like a cobblestone walkway that sort of enters into the mall area and eventually would be tied in with anything that we do at the mall. Okay, in other words, promote the walkability to keep on going all the way over to the mall area. Now, it might be that it's not the one at the end. If you asked me if that damn parking garage wasn't there, I would say, well, and I don't think there's room behind it. Well, let's make the walkway go behind the parking garage. I don't think there's room. You can tell me if there's no room. Go behind the parking garage and follow Vine Brook and come out on the property line for the district and the mall, and then cross over somehow. In other words, follow along Vine Brook. I'm not sure that's possible, but I kind of thought that there would be enhanced connectivity if there was some way of marking a pathway to safely walk across the site to get over to the mall, because they're talking, have you had discussions with our economic development director?
Yeah.
And lately, she's beginning to talk more and more about this village concept with small retail things that people will go over to experience and so forth. And I think it involves, to some extent, probably structured parking. I suspect she has in mind. I don't know what she has in mind, but she's also talking about this enhanced village experience with more green space. And this connected pathway, even if it was a cobblestone marked with a sign to the mall, would do something to enhance that connection. So the challenge is, I'm not expecting you to all jump up and down and say, that's a great idea, why don't we just do this? But I'm wondering if you could give it some thought and we could talk more about this.
It's interesting you bring it up, because in 2015, as part of the Phase 1 and 2, when Prest was built and Row 34, we did make one mall connection that's a pedestrian connection, and there's sort of an enhanced, quote-unquote, gateway of landscape treatment that marks that location. And then I think the mall did their improvements and have the pedestrian connection that takes you over to their new outdoor space. And then we did a second one, which we call Road A, which is at the corner where the hotel is, that actually comes to the mall. And we have a gateway, there's a low seat wall. And what you will see is that when the redesign of the 5/5 building occurred and became two separate buildings, we were very deliberate to create what we're calling a paseo, or a passageway between the two buildings, that made that third connection, that key connection to the mall that you just described.
Yeah, there's probably a way of demarcating it from asphalt
Sure.
to make it look like this is a path.
Yeah, and maybe with some wayfinding, you can make the connection that says to Vinebrook,
That would
or
be,
vice versa.
I would consider that perfect, even if it's not right along the stream. I mean, I think that would be a close second, to have, enhance that connectivity.
Yeah, and we've been thinking about the length of the loop, so that, you know, users of not only the park, but residents or anybody else would understand the measured miles or half-mile
Sure.
walk, so you could sort of understand that loop that you might be experiencing and how far you've walked.
Yeah, we don't have the best graphic to, but everything that you're raising, Larry, are things that we have been thinking about, focused on. We have met with Melissa Tentakis early on to kind of understand some of her goals.
When
and
was the last
objectives.
time you met with her, roughly?
We had a sidewalk with her 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah.
Okay, so she's familiar, she is now begun to become conversant with this overall concept of connecting, following along Vine Brook and all the way up through the well field when it's closed perhaps. We call that the Riverwalk, for lack of a better term, and so this would be part of it going in the other direction.
Yeah, so the concept would be that, you know, if and when, and I think there is going to be a when the Macy's site portion is redeveloped, we would have the ability to provide a connection between, and again, we don't have the best graphic to show it right now, but between the Garage A and Building A, there's going to be a paseo walkway there that would allow for people from the Macy's site, if you would, if they wanted to walk through to our site, and then they would be able to meander through to the Vine Brook.
Just a question, is the word paseo, I've never heard that before, is that French?
Presentation.
Yeah, it's like a passage, passageway.
Paseo. I'm gonna go home and look that up.
It sounds fancier, sounds better.
It sounds good.
I have,
I do think it is, it would be difficult, if not prohibitive, to do it, and I think this graphic, you know, I park in that Garage 700 every day, I know how close it is, and I'm not sure I would want to be walking behind there.
No, I think it would be very difficult. I mean, I'd like you to take a look at it, but perhaps you can confirm that it's probably not a good idea. To have a walkway behind the garage. I don't, yeah, behind that parking garage. I don't know how pleasant it would be to be walking right beside it either.
Feels safe.
It doesn't feel very safe, is I think our initial sort of reaction, and, I think that's why we tried to focus on the importance of extending what was previously approved, you know, kind of putting that concept to the side, expanding it, extending it, and then really tying it back into the broader sidewalk network, so that we could really get people moving through district, and like Chris brought up, having these moments along the Burlington Mall Road property line, you know, making sure we're making clear indicators to where you can connect through.
Okay, that's good, okay.
So, and I think we were trying to pull up we have about 55 slides that we presented to the planning board last week. But we didn't want to overwhelm this meeting, but we can certainly, we've got it.
Zoom out. Yeah, we
Could I-
zoom
It's
out.
an image of the paseo that Chris was mentioning, just to give you.
All right, could I go to Bill now? Bill?
Yeah, we're talking connectivity at the moment, and connecting the district to the mall. What about in the other direction? I still have this high hope
Words right out of my
of
mouth.
connecting to the Leahy property, you know, in some fashion to continue that walkway up in that
We understand there's a
direction.
grade change, but you're aware that they have, like, a somewhat neglected recreation trail? They have populated it with some nice poison ivy?
And we walked it with Melissa a few weeks ago and Liz, to sort of see what the appetite might be for that. There's a significant challenge with grade on the Leahy side of the property, of the river. So, you know, we've looked at it, it just seems like it would have to be sort of
I mean, if you get to the right person at Leahy, perhaps they would tell you that a pedestrian connection that would allow their employees to walk towards the mall would be very much appreciated. The question is, where would it go and how would it work and how you accommodate the grade change and.
I don't think that there's anything we're doing here that it would preclude that from happening, but to your point, I mean, there are a lot of issues with it, right? I mean, it's a grade change. I think that there would be ADA issues too, that if you provide any type of pedestrian connection there, you have handicap accessibility issues, so I'm not sure how that would all
Because of the
work,
grade, it would be difficult, yeah.
Yeah, but it's,
Do you know, Mr. Vaughn, do you know the right person to at least inquire at Leahy? Do you know who you would talk to?
I do, I mean, we represent them, so we've been involved with them. Certainly I can chat with them about the ability to pursue this in the future. I don't want it to hold up our.
I'm not proposing that we hold it, I'm not
But I can
proposing at
certainly
all.
try to,
But as part of this
Yeah.
proceeding, I'd love to say, I had a telephone conversation, and they have some ideas of where they would like, I mean, I'd like to move the idea forward without trying to make it part of your project necessarily.
Understood, okay.
This seemed like a relevant time to bring that up, that's all.
Yeah.
And one other question I have, sort of on a more personal interest, for Chris, I think. Did you also design the rain gardens and stuff as well? Is that part of your
The
responsibility?
original rain garden in front of 1600, correct, yeah.
I have another vision in my head of a guided tour of some sort with the Burlington Garden Club.
Sure.
To go over the function of the rain garden, the plants that are in it, the walkway, and how you select native species and things like that. You would be a contact for that?
Yeah, I think our whole team, between civil and landscape, because there's a lot of engineering in there as well as sort of what's above ground that we could
Yeah,
definitely.
because I think those the rain gardens, the existing ones, I think they're beautiful and very functional, and I think it enhances the whole view of the establishment there. So, and my wife happens to be the president of the garden club, so I would, for that connection, I thought it might be something to propose, probably for, next year's functions that they might do, something like that, and someday. All right, I'll keep you in mind. Thank you.
Larry, just jumping on, or piggybacking on Bill's guided tour comment, the planning board is trying to schedule a guided walk next week of the site, and as soon as we have a date, we're gonna post it as a subcommittee meeting of both boards, so that you're all invited. So if we have a quorum there, it's not a problem, we'll have it posted, and we'll go with the planning board whenever it is. Hopefully next week, or sometime before their next meeting, I think.
Yeah, we're
is
really trying to
the-
do it next week, because we're supposed to be back before them two weeks from tonight, so, yeah.
So we'll try to piggyback with them.
Okay, so one action item is Mr. Vaughn will place a telephone call. Is that correct?
I will try to get it, I'm not sure what I can do other than just indicate to Leahy that there would be a desire in exploring it in the future, right? I mean, there's a lot of things going on with Leahy. I mean, they have that new helideck that they built over there. It's also where their ER drop-off, and so, but I will communicate with them and see.
I thought that the tie-in would be probably at the very rear, away from their ER.
Right, in the back corner.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's an outer ring road that they have
Right.
at the back. And I thought maybe it could tie into there if they're thinking of some pedestrian connectivity there.
Okay.
They'll be into us in a couple of weeks. You can chat to them then.
They will? Oh, perfect. Okay, so are we ready to move on to other things? This was of key interest. Yes,
I
John?
have a couple of questions on the stormwater for the amendment. So there's a storm tech proposed, the one near the existing rain garden. And it's in the loading dock roadway area. So that'll be built to have truck traffic driving over it. It'll be scheduled 40 pipe or whatever it's gonna be.
Yeah, the storm tech systems, they're all designed for the H20
Okay.
adequate loading for that.
Okay. And also, the stormwater reports didn't mention that Vinebrook does have a TMDL, and it does.
Okay. Well,
Which has a TMD?
Vinebrook.
Ryanbrook?
you noted that in the.
All right.
What is that?
And does that affect stormwater standards?
Well, it does. I mean, they knew it was impaired. It just has a TMDL as well.
Is that for the one for bacteria?
Right.
What does TMDL mean?
Total maximum
Yeah,
daily
maximum
load.
daily load.
Yeah, the best management practices that we're employing would satisfy the TMDL for our bacteria, yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah, we can keep moving.
You still have questions on this, or?
No, I think we
Yeah.
can probably move on if
Okay.
there's other areas that are
Yeah.
of interest to the
Just a
commission.
few, I think we had a few slides just to maybe hammer home a couple of points that, yeah.
We'll carry on. This is just, for the record, I'm Laura Leach at VHB. And this is just to highlight what's specifically within the jurisdictional areas. So we know that the path extension that we've been talking about, there is additional removal of impervious area from what the original master plan proposed. And Chris talked about the native plantings. The idea is also that what he selected will really enhance the wildlife habitat and provide, more function and value to the riverfront area. New stormwater features are in there above ground as well, which Eric will talk about in just a second. And the building A, which we've mentioned as well, which will be moving away from the river just slightly, and an increase of pervious area at that location as well. One thing that we did not write in the amendment letter, but we wanted to bring up, was there is a stormwater pipe that is going to be replaced. It's existing. It does go into the bank of the brook. And the idea is that that infrastructure is old and needs to be replaced. So the project would be replacing that, and it would be a trench, a replacement of pipe, return to grade, and restored in place. So very minimal impact. But just wanted to mention that and bring it to the commission's attention.
Where is that pipe on the drawing?
Yeah, if we have a,
Use that one per probably point.
it's actually better on the stormwater, sorry. Yeah, there's,
One of these, yeah, this pipe here.
it's actually on this side, yeah, yeah. And it does look like there's more than one arrow there, but there's only one where there's an actual replacement of the outlet in the bank.
So you'll be going into the bank for the replacement of that?
Yes, yes.
How deep is that? How deep will that trench be?
I think we're down about, I want to say 6 feet or so.
Okay.
Great. And then just,
Excuse me, have you provided a description of how you're gonna do that? Cut into the bank and do that at all? Is that in the materials?
so it's not, and that's why I wanted to bring it up this evening. So it is shown on the plans, on the stormwater plan, but there isn't sort of a work description. I mean, it is means and methods of the contractor, but what we would assume is that there would be a trench that's dug to the depth of the pipe, and the pipe would be replaced. And the work to do that, I mean, what do you think, about a week, maybe? It's quick, yeah. And return to grade, probably 3 feet wide or so. How wide do you think?
Yeah, 3 to 4 feet wide. Bucket width.
3 to 4 feet wide, so.
John, do we need some details of the precautions necessary to avoid additional bank destabilization?
Yeah, we should have a narrative.
Sure, yeah. And then I just wanted to mention, no buildings in the no-build zone, just removal of impervious surfaces, and then no work aside from that one pipe, within the commission's no disturb distance.
Do you need any waivers at all for this work from our no disturb or no building
So, the, pipe that we were just mentioning would be within your no disturbance zone. I'm not sure if, work within, on an existing utility requires a waiver.
No?
And some of the path moving back out of the 20-foot will involve work in the 20-foot to do that, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just hand it over to Eric to talk stormwater.
Yeah, and then just rolling into the stormwater management design for the amendment. Since the previous amendment, the regulations, have changed with the town's enhanced regulations with the phosphorus removal requirements, essentially. So the proposed improvements that we're showing are compliant. We're removing the adequate TSS removal, as well as, for the project as a whole, we're upwards of 67% on the phosphorus side with the infiltration basins. So our overall, stormwater strategy, low-impact development, increased open space, so we are overall reducing that impervious area, restoring natural water cycle, the Vinebrook corridor enhancements and the native plant species, and then implementing the erosion and sedimentation control measures, both during construction measures, and then moving forward, long-term stormwater O&M plan, which their property management team has done a good job at, maintaining the existing structures that are out there. There are some, as you mentioned, the rain garden that's in front of the 1600, as well as a couple subsurface basins that are out there as well, in addition to a couple other smaller rain gardens. And then overall, the water quality enhancements, as I mentioned, we are exceeding the stormwater standards, protecting the Vinebrook. We're within the Aquifer Protection District as well. So we are promoting additional groundwater recharge with the project. Just kind of a high-level overview of the stormwater management system. The improvements, this is showing the overall improvements, and I'll kind of dive into the Building A area where the 5/5 office previously was. With that project, it essentially, on the far right, you can see that long linear, that's an existing rain garden today, which has taken sheet flow off of the pavement. So we are reutilizing that for some of our sheet flow coming off the pavement as well. And then in addition to meet the phosphorus removal, we are adding a couple infiltration chambers that you see in the blue. So on the right side, it's about 5,000 cubic feet of storage and recharge in that system. And then on the far left, on the other side of the parking deck, there's a smaller system, about 2,000 cubic feet, 2,400 cubic feet. That's outside the resource area there, but overall, tying back in, reducing peak rates at the various design points, primarily Vinebrook. We did break the study area up into multiple points that do discharge into Vinebrook, just because we are still utilizing some of the existing infrastructure that is out in the park today. So we just want to make sure that we weren't impacting that. So then tying into that, just kind of moving in to recap on some of the overall benefits that we're providing. As we had already mentioned, removal impervious areas, the native plantings, wildlife habitat enhancements, and then just enhancing the health of the stream and the adjacent wetlands. So with that, we'd like to.
Not sure if you thought we could get into the next filings for the notice of intent for another portion of the property, but if.
Okay, let's talk about stormwater then, in case there's any comments. John or Aileen, do you have any comments on, for this amendment, any comments on what they've said about stormwater?
Well, I've already asked a couple of questions, but I have one additional one. So the parking deck, the top of it's open? There's no canopy over it or anything like that? Is that the idea?
Correct.
Maybe solar.
Yeah, I guess.
So we're talking about having a solar array on there.
And how would that affect the stormwater runoff up there if you had solar canopies?
It's the same area that's being collected within the roof drain system up there.
Great, thanks.
Is the quality of the stormwater off the solar array different than off the floor of a garage?
It's being warmer.
It would be cleaner.
It'd be cleaner, right?
I'm just wondering if it can be treated different from a stormwater management perspective as rooftop runoff.
It's still gonna drip off the canopy onto the garage
It's gonna fall onto the
floor.
garage though, right? So it's still gonna pick up that, at least some of it.
Yeah, it would still want to go through the same treatment system then.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see if there's any questions or comments about stormwater for a moment. All right, Indra, anything about stormwater you want to say at this time? It's very early in this process, but,
No, it's very early, so I'm happy to hear that there will be solar panels on the roof. So that's good.
okay.
They're gonna treat the stormwater. Definitely. It does work. That's the news. And
Okay. Kent, anything?
At this time?
Emily, anything on this so far? Bill?
No, I'm happy with what I've seen. You know, anytime we can get increased pervious area and increased plantings into a well-established, developed site, this is a positive thing.
All right, on the stormwater, I have two questions. One is, as part of this amendment, are you leveraging greater use of low-impact development than you have existing there?
Yes, yeah, we're reducing impervious area, which is,
But I mean, like, low-impact development structures for stormwater, like trees and basins with underflows or whatever.
along the river walk area, we are incorporating rain gardens along that edge.
Okay, and what about the parking lot runoff? Is it all structured,
Where-
underground structures as opposed to low-impact, low areas where water can run off into?
Primarily, we're going underground. We are reusing the existing rain garden that was built to accommodate the 5/5 office portions of that development. So we are still reutilizing that existing one that's out there.
So my question to John and Eileen, do the regulations require, in this circumstance, additional low-impact development structures? Are
So
they,
this is an amendment, this is not a new NOI.
would it
So
be
for
different if it was,
default-
if it was a new NOI, would it be different?
Right, so compared to the order of conditions you approved, there are low-impact improvements. The reduction of pavement over what you already approved is a low-impact development technique, reducing pavement, so.
Okay.
But it's an amendment, so. It's also a pretty tight site. I mean, I looked and tried to figure out, if they could just increase the size of the existing rain garden over there, and they don't really have room. And where they're putting that underground structure is like near their loading dock and their access road to the loading dock. There really isn't much room for surface in this portion of the park as opposed to some of the other parts.
Okay, and then the second question I have is, in the area of concern for the amendment, have you reviewed the existing basins for their integrity, or are you upgrading any of the catch basins to, from 2 to 4 foot sumps? I mean, I don't even know what's out there, you haven't said too much. So,
We haven't inventoried those existing basins.
haven't?
We can take a look. As far as the existing, I guess, maintenance records, we can confirm that. And certainly, I think providing upgrades, adding hoods, retrofitting those existing structures if needed.
could you take a look at setting in motion to ascertain not the quality of the integrity of the catch basins that exist? Are they brick lined, or are they some other kind of material in there? I don't know what they are now.
Yeah, we could take a look. I know a lot of them are newer. I mean, they were installed 2015 with the Building 700 expansion in that general location. So I would anticipate that they're modern structures, but we can certainly.
I'm interested in the old ones that haven't been perhaps looked at lately. And whether we should have something on file that they were looked at if it's within this amendment.
Okay.
And upgraded if needed or fixed if needed.
I think within the limits of this project, there's only 2 catch basins, right?
I was gonna say, whatever existing ones are kind of in our area, we're gonna be ripping out and.
Right, I think, and there's two new ones, I think, shown on the plan, right?
So it may not apply, my comment may not apply, you're saying. in
Those
this
are my
area.
recollection.
In this general area, correct, yes.
So I should file that comment in the back of my brain and retrieve it for the next hearing?
Larry, if it makes you feel any better, I know I've been in touch with Katie and various other people, and they have sent me, because, you know, we're trying to get a handle on all the maintenance records, and they sent me a bunch of stuff a few months ago before this came up, and I didn't know this was there. So I know they have been cleaning regularly, and I have maintenance reports. I mean, I don't know about this exact spot, but throughout the whole of the district, they have been.
Okay, in fact, that was the other thing that I was gonna ask about, whether they've been doing the maintenance on them or not, or they need to be cleaned out. And so you say they have been doing them?
I know they sent me a few years' worth recently, didn't you? We had a whole
We had
meeting about it.
a meeting this past summer.
Yeah.
And I think our record keeping, we were doing the cleanup, but maybe not in years prior, doing all of the record keeping, but we've caught up and we're doing the record keeping and all of that paperwork has been sent along to Eileen.
So I don't know if part of this amendment, but if something either needs to be cleaned or cleaned out or inspected, I'd like to see a commitment to do that. If it's not necessary for the amendment because you have records and they were installed in 2015, and then the other 2 you're putting in 2 new ones, then we'll hold it for the next hearing.
It would just be added to their overall, the next batch of cleanings that they do.
Okay. So where do we go now? Are we done with the amendment?
I think so. Unless there's any further comments, so if you wanted us to, I don't know if you need to continue the hearing on this before we open up the next, or?
Well, I opened up both of them, so.
Okay, all right, so we can talk about the other, that's fine, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention one thing. We are requesting an extension to the existing order with this amendment. I just wanted, I think it was in the letter, in the submittal, but I just
Yes.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, I mean,
It's gonna expire.
it really
July.
won't, but we'll give you because of COVID, there's an extra 400 some odd days tacked onto all permits, but we can still issue an extension.
Okay.
It's probably better to just do that.
Should we do that tonight or at a subsequent meeting?
You could do it tonight.
Okay, how much longer are you looking for an extension for this order?
Well, I think in the past it's been extended for 3-year increments,
yeah.
so that's, if that sounds okay, 3-year, yeah.
Okay, are there any outstanding violations at all on this particular order? All right, so what's the DEP number?
122-537.
Could I have a motion to extend the order of conditions for DEP number 122-537 for another 3 years beyond the current expiration date in July? Does that cover it?
We don't have an extension form for you to sign, so we'll have to have you sign it later, but.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So move, Bill.
Second, Indra.
All right, Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
And Emily?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. By a vote of 5-0-0, this project is extended for another 3 years. Okay. So, I guess we can start. What time do we want to go through? It can only absorb so much, like within the next hour, we'll.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna keep this one brief, but I don't think we need to do the introduction again in terms of.
And if you let them.
The word brief was music to my ears.
May I ask a general question before we get into the discussion of the new buildings? I don't know what's the best point to ask this. It's probably for the people from National Development. I'll start by saying I see development in Burlington, building new homes, 1.5, $2 million and more. And more of them being built, and now the demand is drying up. I worry about some of the developers now that are still building that type of thing. What's gonna happen if the demand dries up? I have the same concerns about lab space. Every place I look, every city, every town is racing to build lab space. There's numerous lab space projects in Burlington alone. Are we facing the possibility of running out of customers, or the last one to the party is gonna suffer the biggest losses, I'm sure? What's the status? What's your view on something like that?
Save the easy one for me.
It's easy.
No, I mean, yes, everyone, there's certainly a dip occurring. We're on a high probably 2 years ago, and now we've clearly kind of fallen off the cliff. I think the answer for this particular property is that we're looking at the long game. National's been an owner of this property for 10 years. We also own 1 million square feet, almost 1 million square feet of office as well. And both markets are shifting. The market for office is also sort of, I don't have the crystal ball to know, but I think we are going to see a transformation, and we're going to see a little bit of a tightening of that office market. So, and we should have probably mentioned this at the beginning of the hearing, but our overall vision for this is to, because we're not only just replacing the 5/5 future office that we're now not going to build. We tried for many years and there was no takers. And then COVID occurred and there's really no takers for that office building. In the similar fashion, 1,700 and 1,200 would be coming down to make way for the 2 new lab buildings. So if you look at the makeup of the park, at the end, when you build these 3 lab buildings, you have less office and more life science. So we're trying to bring people back to the district, people back to work, and I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't think these buildings are going to be built just to sit empty. That doesn't help national development.
That's my concern, yeah.
But we also see that the life sciences are not leaving this area. There's definitely, a slowdown that's upon us right now. There's certainly economic headwinds, but playing the long game, there's been a lot of work in Burlington just at a broader level to, encourage life science to come to Burlington. We see how the life science users and tenants tend to move in clusters. So if we can bring enough density of a life science user by way of these 3 buildings to the district, we hope that we can create a cluster within the cluster. So if people start to move, these tenants start to come to Burlington, and then they can be at the district Burlington, and they can have, there's a tenant at building A, then we've got building B and C, that we've created a little cluster at the district. So that's the vision. We know that we need to sort of work with our 1 million square feet of office and think about how to better position the entire campus for the future. Life science fits into the PDD in terms of a use by way of special permit, but it's kind of our long-term thinking. And we also think, and I'm clearly biased because I'm a believer in the district, but we've brought, 6 restaurants, we have a hotel. We're very well positioned in terms of our location next to the mall. We have great access to the site in terms of the highways and the network that's around it. So we believe that if we are able to work through this permitting phase and sort of kind of, if you build it, they will come, concept will play out over time. So that's our hope.
Is the belief that the time to build new structures such as lab space is the time when perhaps the environment is not immediately good because it takes so much time that if you wait until the market comes back, then you might be late to the party?
I think that we'd be, in a similar way that we approached how we thought of the 5/5 5 years ago, we were waiting for the right user to come to the table and look at that site. The same approach would be taken here. We would be smart in our development. It's a lot of money to build a lab building. So we would want to make sure that we would have the right user to come to the table.
You don't have a user at this time.
We don't have a user at this time.
I do think too, Bill, if I could, that, certainly there's been a lot happening in the economy and the news in terms of the dip that Katie referenced, right? But I think when things do come back, and they are going to come back, I think that there still is a demand for this type of space, and they're going to want to go to an amenity enriched environment like this, as opposed to, you know, somewhere out on 495 where, you know, you don't necessarily have this to be able to offer. So I think it's well suited to be kind of first in line, so to speak, to be attractive to potential tenants. And, you know, last thing I know life science lab tenants and folks in that arena want to hear is, you know, is that, well, yeah, we can get you in a building, but we just need to go through the approval process first and get the approval. So the fact that they could have the approvals in place and then act, I think is
Critical. And the other thing I'll say that we've, you know, heard, not only with the life science users, but also offices, there's a flight to quality. So they want to be in purpose-built space. So specifically with the life science buildings, you know, we've done the studies, we've looked at some of the buildings at the district. Oh, can you convert? Can it work? And, you know, they're challenged by floor-to-floor heights. They don't have the structure on the roof to hold all of the equipment, to have the right air. So having the purpose-built space for those life science users is really critical as well.
Let me ask you something. The conversion from office space to lab space, which seems to be the trend these days. Everywhere I go, there is a number of the office buildings conceived 20, 25 years ago. And even though they may be operating, they're not using the asphalt. They're not using the degree of parking. I think maybe it's because, I mean, what is your view? I mean, is this project you're proposing going to reclaim because of a view that the asphalt surface parking is not going to be used? Is there some thinking that you're going to reclaim some of that because the office holders are not going to use it anymore because they're doing some of this remote?
That is a very good question, and it was something we thought about for quite a while, and refined as we put our master plan proposal together. We actually had a much larger garage, Garage B, and I think it's in the next plan. Wait to that. And we also we spent some time counting cars over the last, I guess we stopped in December, but we did it from, I think, over the summer and through the fall, to see how, and compare that against our occupancy. So we're 95% occupied with our office, and we thought it would be interesting to see how many people are actually going to work. And so I think we're about 10% today. That was last year, and I think we're seeing a continued rise in that number.
10% today, what, 10%? What is
10%
that?
of the parking spaces were, at the lowest point, were being occupied on like a Monday.
As of today?
This is as of last fall.
Last fall? And
We haven't done the
what
counts.
about now? What are you seeing?
We haven't done a, not that we were super scientific about it, but we are seeing people starting to come back, and anecdotally, there are more cars in the parking lot Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Seems to be the new trend for the remote hybrid worker.
I noticed that too, being there every day. I think when you referenced the 10%, it must have just been me and Bob Buckley that were the only ones parking. But yeah, it tends to be a little bit more during the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
So is there opportunity in this new project or should there be an opportunity to reclaim some of this asphalt for green space?
Well, and that's exactly what we're doing. With this proposal, we're adding a fair amount of new green space as part
I don't
of
want to
this.
steal Chris's thunder, but what are we, 5 times?
Yeah.
So if you compare what was previously approved of the 5/5 and the retail building, and you bring in these 3 new buildings, we have 5 times the amount of open space in this program as compared to before. Again, with the same focus of trying to kind of densify the parking, so create open space, put cars in structured parking, and then have that opportunity for more, just generally more open space around the park.
I think we just gave Chris the perfect lead-in.
I know.
I don't know what comes, if you go back. one
We're
second.
out of order now.
It's all right.
Just to highlight before, if you notice the large sea of parking between building 1700 and building 1200 today. And then to the south of 1700 is a large field of parking as well. And the plan is to stack parking in that southern locations to the south of 1700. So we're using the impervious that's there and just stacking all the cars out. And when building 1700 comes down, it becomes more green space. And it becomes that portal to the brook that we talked about, which is, we're really excited about that. It's also an opportunity to expand adjacent to that existing rain garden and incorporate new rain gardens that will be occurring in that park. Where that large parking field was between building 1200 is now becoming our central park, essentially. And it becomes the feature piece between these new lab buildings. And it places green open space in the middle of the entire development, which is really going to bring people and walkability to more parts of the development versus just having most of that walkability occur on District Avenue where it does today. So it's trying to draw it more to the brook and sort of spread it out. So it's a really significant enhancement to open space, and not only for the users, but for the public as well. These are open spaces for all to use. So do you have more to add to that? From a technical standpoint?
So essentially, the purpose of these signs is to highlight the area for essentially the new notice of intent in the areas in red, showing the new 2B and C lab buildings, Garage B, and also Garage 2400. And you kind of touched on that parking and what is that real demand, and do you really need to build all that parking? And that's what we're studying. And we want to, be thoughtful of it in the future, because as the demand changes through time, what is that real parking demand? So we are proposing some essentially structured land bank parking, and that's to the south of Garage B. You see that dashed line. That is to be built in the future if needed. So when Building C comes online, if that demand is there and we really need that parking, that garage can get expanded by an additional about 450 spaces.
Until it is expanded, it will remain as paved parking or just not structured parking?
Surface.
Non-structured
Yeah, just
parking,
surface.
surface parking, yeah, okay.
Yep. And then similarly with Garage 2400, that's currently a two-level parking deck. It was originally designed to handle another 2 stories. So we are, if the demand is there, adding on to that structure as well once Building C comes online. So we don't want to build it, but for the parking numbers, if we need to do it in the future, it's there to support that. So this dives in more to.
Yeah, this is just a zoom in of that Brook Park you're seeing. So you see Building 600 and the open space that is generated where Building 1700 occurred. It's a combination of a small amount of surface parking, and that's primarily to support accessible parking in proximity to the buildings from a code perspective. But then to the left of that surface area and to the west is outdoor gathering space that supports Building B, and we've sort of designed that as a meandering path to kind of give a hint of where you're heading, the meandering qualities of the brook, and so we've called it Brook Park, just from our own perspective. And it's sort of a tale of 2 spaces. There's to the left of the meandering path is a more densely planted dry stream and rain garden component, and to the right of the meandering path is more of an open lawn space for people to gather. And there are 2 crossing points of the rain garden that feed both Building 1600 and as well as just make connections to the north. And we've tried to make those generous enough, those crossings, so that they actually become little gathering spaces where you feel like you're sitting above the rain garden and you can see it on both sides. And then the Central Park, just quickly, it's meant to be a real sort of programmed, active performance space, so there could be concerts and movie nights and cycling events or whatever they want to do out there. You could have all kinds of fitness and social gathering in the center of the park, and then at the edges, there's not only circulation patterns, but there are also a lot of seating pockets that have been incorporated into the shaded areas along the north and south movements, and as well as a little bit of a shaded gathering space out on what's called Road A, Really just a diverse mix of use types within that central space.
So, I'll just highlight these really quickly for you. The work is within, portions of it at least, are within previously disturbed riverfront area. And all of those, features that Chris described, will enhance that riverfront area, as well as the removal of impervious area, existing impervious area. And then, again, no, buildings within the 50-foot, and in this case, no work within the 20-foot no disturbance zone, so no waiver would be required. Just some pretty standard mitigation measures that would happen during construction. And nothing that you wouldn't see in an ordinary SWIP, but just wanted to highlight these as far as what would be, what the contractor would be doing during construction. And those are all shown on the plans as well. And then back to stormwater management, which it is the same stormwater report for both the new NOI and the amendment. It's identical. It's obviously all connected. And the benefits are the same as well.
Yeah, so this is the same slide. We're implementing very similar techniques as we discussed previous, incorporating, the treatment train with the deep sump hooded catch basins connected into pre-treatment prior to the infiltrating basins. So we are providing the 44% pre-treatment prior to entering the infiltrating basins. We are within the LUPL land use with higher pollutant potential loading due to the vehicle trips generated at the development. So just the overall stormwater management plan focusing more now on, building B, C in the garage. You can see we have a series of subsurface infiltration structures to provide the groundwater recharge, as well as providing the phosphorus removal with those infiltration devices. Additionally, the lighter blue are the surface basins, coordinating with Chris on, making those really nice looking rain gardens, providing the infiltration benefits, and capturing some of those surface stormwater runoff to reduce the need for, additional structures in the ground as well. Ultimately, we are tying in, you can see along kind of the new service road and access into Garage B, replacing and adding a new trunk line down that road, which ultimately connects to the existing stormwater system in the small roundabout in front of 1600. And at the end of that, we are proposing a storm scepter water quality unit, and that's to provide the water quality TSS removal for that run. But overall, from the overall stormwater management goals and the loading rates provided at the site, we're still over for the phosphorus as a whole. So we're unable to fully infiltrate that run, but we are providing the best management practice we can at the end of that run prior to connecting into the existing system, which ultimately discharges into Vine Brook. So overall as a whole, we are at 81% for the TSS, 67% for phosphorus. And then highlighting project benefits again, the removal, 15,000 square feet of impervious. And I think the other number we had was it was about 66,000 square feet of just general, public open space that is going to be provided by the project as a whole. So just a really, huge benefit with the couple new parks that are getting put in. And then similarly, the native plantings within the riverfront areas for the wildlife habitat benefits, and then the increased plantings throughout. I think we got upwards of almost 400 new trees with the project. So that's our quick overview.
Thank you. Let's see if anybody has questions on the stormwater aspects you described. John and Eileen, did you have any comments on this so far for these lab buildings?
Just one comment. So because this is work in the riverfront area, you do need an alternatives analysis?
Oh, it's all previously degraded riverfront area. It's a redevelopment, so it's all
Okay.
previously degraded, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's a redevelopment, no alternatives analysis?
If it's totally within degraded area?
Correct, it's totally within degraded areas. And we do provide an improvement, significant improvement, and that's the requirement for
Okay.
redevelopment.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else at this time?
Nope.
Okay, Indra, anything?
I just want to ask one question now. Is that, I heard 66,000 square feet open space is adding into this development?
Correct. Yeah, it's open space that also includes the public amenity areas, so it does include sidewalk and some of the hardscape that Chris is incorporating into the landscape design. So it's not just pervious area, it's the whole amenity space.
Thank you.
Okay. Kent, any comments or questions at this point?
No, nothing, good presentation, looks like significant improvement, so.
All right, Emily, anything? Bill?
I normally am not one enthusiastic when I see new buildings in Burlington, oh boy. But in this case, they're all on existing paved areas. They are putting in structured parking to eliminate surface parking, which is one of my pet peeves, that we don't have more structured parking. The increase of 15,000 square feet of pervious area is a tremendous improvement, and there's gonna be improved water treatment as well. I love the rain gardens, the more of them, the merrier. There's other places in town that have tried rain gardens that are not necessarily successful, but these seem to be well-designed and well-functional. And the stormwater report is outstanding. It's very clear, very complete, very readable. I think it's a good example of how a stormwater report should be done. I like the summary page that summarizes the project benefits in one view that, helps move those who have to vote on approval. So I like that as part of it as well. So I'm impressed with if we have to have new buildings, this is a good way to do it and the way it should be done, so kudos.
And I think I was reading through the new Massachusetts Energy Stretch Code. I think 20% of the parking spaces have to have EV hookups with the new energy code.
Wow.
I think that's what it is.
That's right.
That reminds me of another question. I am assuming your new buildings are going to be heated by gas? Are you gonna get away from that and into more electrical heating as we seem to be needing to be trending?
That is, we're still in studies, I would say, in terms of the entire mechanical system of the building. We do believe we still need gas for these buildings. We've also, the life science users also are very reliant on standby power and making sure that they have backup power. So whether that's an opportunity to disconnect from, not use the gas line, but we would probably need fuel oil in that case. So we're still working through all the details of the mechanics of the building, but we will, I don't think we mentioned in this round, but we will also be putting solar on Garage B. And when we expand.
Putting solar where?
On garage, the second garage, Garage B.
How about on the lab buildings? Can solar
So-
go on there?
It's a little more challenging, just given the amount of mechanical equipment, which will all be enclosed within the penthouse, but there's some areas where there's well spaces where the cooling towers kind of have, their exhaust and things like that.
Because you could theoretically go with some solar for battery backup, and then
Right.
the gas furnace becomes a supplement.
Right. So we're looking at that. The new energy code, I think you mentioned, it's pretty stringent. We're still absorbing what it all means, especially for a lab building. So I think these will be highly efficient buildings. To the extent we can bring in more solar, we will look at it. But we wanted to lead with, putting them on the garages is a really efficient way to get
So the whole top of the garage will have a canopy of sorts?
on both, yes, yep, yep,
Both garages?
yep.
I think you included a presentation for the planning board that talked about some of this, didn't you? And,
did.
and the fact that they're aiming for LEED silver and.
That's the goal, LEED silver for the buildings. And who knows, we might, engage with a tenant that wants something different, but that could be improved from there. But our target for the development is
Okay, so two questions I have. Are there any catch basins in this project area that are being, old catch basins that are being maintained, and will you inspect them for integrity?
Are there any that are being maintained? in this
Yeah, there's
area?
probably some on the peripheral that we are maintaining that are tying in. So
Get us an inspection report on that,
certainly. Yeah.
okay? And whether they need attention,
Yep.
okay? And the other is there any existing infiltration structures? And then the same question, can we get an inspection of those unless it's been done recently, obviously? Are there any existing infiltration structures that might be clogged up, or partially clogged up now, that are being maintained?
In the area of the notice of intent, in this general area, there are not. There are some built with the original development around, 400, 300, and 200. There is a subsurface system out there, and I believe in the parking lot at 2400, there's a subsurface basin as well.
John, should we be, it's not in the project area as proposed. Can we ask them to take a look at that, whether they've done maintenance on them or not inspected them?
I think we have records on that, right?
Do we have records on that?
Well, this is what we were saying earlier. They've given me records for most of the district. It's now.
I'm concerned about the
Have a
infiltration.
plan now for overall.
obvious reasons.
We do.
So
Compliant with the stormwater management plan.
if we somewhere from records or from an current inspection or just a previous past inspection, if we can get some comfort that they're going to work properly and they don't need to be cleaned out, that would be a good thing.
Okay.
What's your next inspection?
Hmm?
What's your next inspection?
I'm assuming this spring.
Try to schedule it.
Yeah, we can work on getting that scheduled.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to do here tonight? This was a good review of the project for the first time via immersion, I guess. We got really deep into it. So why don't we review in case there are issues? The only thing I heard so far is that any catch basins in the project area, we're going to verify their integrity either by we have records or something that's been inspected or something. And I heard that we're going to get a narrative on that pipe for the other thing. I heard that. And I heard that we're going to explore a little bit whether Leahy would be amenable to a further discussion on a crossover and have some idea of where they might want it. Not as part of this project, but maybe in a subsequent filing, perhaps? Okay.
Yeah, I can inquire, make them aware that, there'd be an interest in, town would have an interest in considering, some type of connection between.
Especially if they're thinking of connections to their activities path and their ring road.
Okay.
Anything else, John or Eileen?
At this time, do you have any idea what time of day that the site walk will be? Evening or
Just waiting to hear
afternoon?
back from Liz, I think.
Yeah, I need to give Liz a call
Okay.
again tomorrow. I haven't heard
Okay.
for a date or a time window yet.
I mean, I think a site walk could raise additional questions, but
Okay. And we all can go out there pretty easily, too, and look if there's something of interest
right,
by ourselves if we have to.
true.
Okay, anything else on this? All right, so I guess we should have a motion to continue this to the next meeting. Does that sound about right, or are you going to go for the one after that?
No, I think the next meeting would be good.
It's 3 weeks till the next meeting
Yeah,
at this
that's
point.
fine, yeah.
All right, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing? And we're going to do it for both the amendment and, we have to do each one, right? Continue the amendment and continue the other one. Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing for the amendment to order of conditions and wetlands bylaw for the district for DEP file number 122-537 to the meeting of April 13th, 2023?
So moved, Kent?
Second?
Second, Bill.
All right. Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes 5-0. The amendment is continued to the April 13th meeting. Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for the 1200 and 1700 District Ave for the construct new lab buildings and parking garage and make improvements to landscape and utilities to the April 13th, 2023 meeting of the Conservation Commission? Is there a motion?
So moved. Emily?
Indra.
Second?
Second,
Second.
Bill.
No fighting, children. Okay, that's, all right, Indra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the 1200 and 1700 District Ave notice of intent is continued to April 23rd. April 13th, I'm sorry. April 13th. Thank you all very much for all your contribution.
Thank you.
It was very enlightening.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Indra.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Oh my God, should I just send this to Larry, since he didn't seem to believe that I had all this from them?
my wife keeps asking, what are they doing there? What are they doing
Maybe I should have changed it to 9.
Yeah,
Not that we're that close to the end, 9:15 is probably.
yes.
Written reports.
I mean, really? They have to send us the whole thing. when we have all this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, 9.
Hope they know what they're doing, building 3 new lab buildings.
All right, so
Everybody else is doing the same thing.
next we have, we should wrap this up now. Planning board comments, anything? Subcommittee and staff reports. We have a subcommittee when?
Monday.
Monday at 4.
It's not in this room, it's in the room
It's in
across the.
the annex basement. And it's also via WebEx, so you can join via WebEx. But we don't have the whole camera set up, so the public can. If the public wants to attend, they'd have to attend in person. But you commissioners, so if you want to bring a laptop, it'd be helpful, so you can see any other commissioners who aren't in the room.
I'll be online. I won't be
I'll be
physically.
present.
Okay.
Well, I'll have a laptop and we can connect
can
it
try
to,
to
we can
project
connect
it.
it to the screen.
Yeah, hopefully we can project it.
All right, other business?
So I had sent out an email about a proposal by an applicant for a consultant for a violation of 58 Beaverbrook, where they proposed to plant shrubs rather than trees. It was a violation where they cut quite a few trees beyond the demarcation. So I said I would bring it up at this meeting. My recommendation is probably that you reject that and require trees, but I would suggest first we schedule a site walk at 58 Beaverbrook, so we can do that before the next meeting when we're doing the site visits for all the other, whatever else is on the agenda, and then respond to them after taking a look. But there were a lot of trees cut down on that site.
Not only were there a lot of trees, but the shade important for the wetland, right in the wetland, was removed.
Right.
Can we require them to plant trees in the wetland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Additionally, so today the legislature did pass an extension. The governor hasn't signed it yet, but it was her bill apparently originally to extend the remote meetings and the hybrid meetings for, I don't know, at least a year or so. I mean, it was scheduled to elapse at the end of this month, but it seems very likely that it will be extended indefinitely, if not permanently. So we can continue to do these meetings like this.
Anything else?
Well, I have just something to add. We have partnered with the Economic Development Department, that's Bring Us to Burlington, and with the local chapter of Keep Burlington Beautiful. And we're sort of doing encouraging people to do neighborhood cleanups for the month of April, sort of on the lead up to Earth Day. So we've already gotten a couple of people asking us about that. We are also partly in partnership with the rec department. We were going to be doing a vernal pool walk and a bird walk. as part of their Spring-a-Palooza. We've been doing that the last couple of years, but just due to some scheduling issues, we are actually just doing the vernal pool walk on our own, and we already have a bunch of people signed up for that, so that's pretty nice. John's going to be leading that. Just letting you know.
When is that?
When is that?
April
The
3rd or
the
5th?
vernal pool walk is April 5th. And then the bird walk is May something.
just send out the
During
di-
the day.
It is, it's 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Could you send
The
out
Vernal Pool Walk is filled with homeschoolers already.
with what?
Homeschoolers.
People
I'm gonna
homeschooling
keep track of those guys, because we're gonna keep.
Unfortunately, vernal pool, the best time to look in a vernal pool is like near midday, you know, when you've got the sun overhead and you're trying to find egg masses. You know, if you don't have bright light, it's hard to find them, so it's not something you can do in the evening. The bird walk is scheduled in the morning, birds are most active in the morning.
Whatever happened with the adopt a storm drain?
Well,
Did you get some people sign up?
we did. I still can't see the bird walk. We did. That's something I'll keep prodding every now and then, at least on our social media. We have. We've been doing a lot of things lately.
Cool.
Oh, and we're also moving ahead with some more of the educational stuff. We have we have an intern at the moment from Minuteman, and she's helping out with a lot of projects, actually, including the wetland education. We're sending out a bunch of letters. That's our first thing that we're doing, and she's helping with that. She's getting those together for us.
Sending it to whom? The affected properties, or to the mass mailing in general, or what?
No, what we're doing, first of all, is we're going back to the table that I had already created, which is we're initially targeting people who we know that development happened at their property. So the letters will say things like, your house was built in 2015 and it was done it was done under an order of conditions, just to let you know, these are the conditions at your house. Give us a call if you have any, that kind of thing. We'll spread it from there, but that's our first kind of low-hanging fruit.
I think that's great.
Okay, the next meeting is April 13th and 27th, the one after that. And is there anything else? Hearing none, could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission? No one
So
wants to?
moved.
Wait a minute.
All right, Emily, first, second.
Second, Kent?
Indra, how do you vote on adjournment?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. By a vote of 5-0-0, this meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission is now adjourned.
We didn't put the bird walk on the calendar.